Imagine strolling along the beach at dawn, only to stumble upon a monster from the abyss, a pitch-black fish with a gaping mouth and a bioluminescent lure, or an impossibly long silver ribbon of a creature with fiery red fins. These are deep-sea creatures, animals from the ocean's darkest depths, turning up where they don't belong, at the surface or even on our shores. In recent years, there have been more and more reports of such alien-looking sea creatures appearing in shallow waters or washing ashore from California to Japan. It's a sight both mesmerizing and a little eerie, and it begs the question, why are deep-sea creatures coming to the surface? Some people on social media are quick to whisper about doomsday prophecies and giant sea monsters fleeing an impending catastrophe. In fact, one legendary fish, the giant oarfish, is often called the doomsday fish, and is said to appear before earthquakes in Japanese folklore. But is there truth to these legends, or is something else, something more scientific, driving these creatures from the ocean depths? Today we'll explore the real reasons behind this phenomenon. We'll dive deep, no pun intended, into the world of deep-sea creatures, discover what makes them so unique, and reveal how climate change and shifting ocean conditions might be luring these creatures into the light. By the end, you'll understand how the fate of these strange creatures is tied to the health of our oceans, and what their appearance might be telling us about our planet. To understand why it's so startling to find deep-sea creatures at the surface, we first need to appreciate where they come from. The deep ocean, often called the midnight zone, begins a few hundred meters down, where sunlight disappears and complete darkness reigns. Temperatures plunge to near freezing and pressure is immense, hundreds of times the pressure at sea level. Life down there has adapted in mind-boggling ways. Deep-sea fish typically have soft, gelatinous bodies and no air-filled swim bladders, the organ that keeps many fish buoyant. This is a clever adaptation. Without air pockets, they won't be crushed by pressure. Instead, their bodies are often filled with water or oil, and even their cell membranes and proteins are built to withstand the crush, helped by special compounds like TMAO that stabilize their proteins under pressure. In other words, these creatures are built for a world so extreme that humans can only visit it with submarines and thick metal hulls. And in that cold, dark world, evolution gets creative. Many deep-sea creatures have evolved bioluminescence, the ability to produce light, to hunt or communicate in the darkness. The iconic anglerfish, for example, has a glowing lure dangling in front of its face. This lure, tipped with light-producing bacteria, acts like a fishing rod to attract prey. When an unsuspecting smaller fish comes close, snap! The anglerfish's massive jaws ensure dinner is served. Fun fact, female anglerfish are the big, fearsome ones. The males are tiny in comparison and actually fuse to the female's body as permanent mates, surviving only as a pair of attached organs for reproduction. Then, there's the giant oarfish, Regalecus glesna, the longest bony fish in the world. It looks like a silver ribbon fluttering in the water, with a mane of long red fins on its head. Oarfish can grow over 30 feet, that's longer than a bus. They usually drift vertically in deep water, slurping up tiny krill and plankton with a toothless mouth. Because of their undulating, serpent-like bodies, many believe oarfish sightings in old times inspired sea serpent legends. They are so elusive that humans rarely see them alive. Most observations are of sick or dead oarfish that float to the surface. We also have creatures like the grenadier fish, deep-sea eels, giant squids, bizarre viperfish with fangs, and cusk eels that live in nearly oxygen-starved waters. Many of these animals are specially adapted to scarcity. Food is sparse in the deep. Less than 5% of the food produced at the surface ever reaches the abyssal seafloor. So deep-sea dwellers often have slow metabolisms, gigantic mouths to devour anything they find, or special gills to extract every bit of oxygen from water. It's a harsh existence, but these adaptations have let them thrive in places we once thought life couldn't exist. Given all this, it's clear that deep-sea creatures are supremely adapted to life in the deep, not the surface. The surface ocean with bright light, warmer temperatures and much lower pressure is practically alien to them. So normally these beings stay far below, hidden in darkness. Seeing them up close near the surface is a rare event, and usually means something went very wrong for the creature, or something changed in its environment. In recent years, strange events in the ocean have made headlines. Let's look at a few eye-opening examples. The doomsday oarfish appearances. In summer 2023, divers off the coast of Taiwan filmed a giant oarfish live near the surface, its long body undulating in the water. It had mysterious bite marks along its sides, almost as if something had attacked it. Around the same time, an oarfish washed up on a beach in Baja California, Mexico, thrashing in shallow water, and in the Canary Islands, one nearly 15 feet long was found on shore. These incidents stirred up talk of the old legend. In Japan, people say oarfish come up from the deep before earthquakes or tsunamis. In fact, before the devastating 2011 Fukushima earthquake in Japan, dozens of oarfish were reportedly seen or stranded, feeding the folklore that these fish sense impending quakes. However, marine scientists remain skeptical of any earthquake connection. As fish expert Hiroyuki Motomura bluntly put it, there is no scientific proof linking oarfish appearances with seismic activity. The more likely truth is that those oarfish were either sick or distressed. Oarfish typically only come near the surface if they are dying or disoriented, essentially if they can't maintain their depth. So while the timing with earthquakes might be coincidental, it's understandable why these legendary fish freak people out when they show up. Nightmarish anglerfish on the beach. On the shores of Southern California, Pacific footballfish, a type of deep-sea anglerfish, have made rare appearances. This fish looks like a creature from a horror film: spiky skin, a round body with a huge toothy grin, and that trademark lantern on its head. Normally it lives about 2,000 to 3,300 feet underwater in total darkness. Yet in May 2021, beachgoers at Crystal Cove State Park were stunned to find a 14-inch Pacific footballfish washed up on the sand perfectly intact. Wildlife officials were amazed. Only around 30 specimens of this species have ever been collected worldwide. Incredibly, later that same year, 2021, 2 more anglerfish washed ashore in California. 3 of these deep-sea anglerfish in 1 year, when previously sightings are decades apart, is highly unusual. At the time, officials cautiously called it serendipity, a once-in-a-blue-moon coincidence. But then, in October 2023, it happened again. Another Pacific footballfish was found on a California beach. It was the second of its kind in that spot in just 2 years, prompting headlines about a nightmarish deep-sea footballfish appearing for unknown reasons. Scientists still aren't sure why these anglerfish ended up on shore. Mass whale strandings and other oddities. It's not just fish. Whole groups of deep-diving marine mammals have shown unusual behavior. Whale strandings, where pods of whales beach themselves, have been on the rise in some areas. For example, more than 150 false killer whales stranded together on Tasmanian beaches recently. Most of them sadly did not survive despite rescue efforts. Whales are not deep-sea creatures in the same sense as anglerfish, but many species like sperm whales and beaked whales dive very deep for food. Scientists have long studied why whales strand, with theories ranging from sonar interference messing up their navigation, to disease, to confusion by unusual magnetic or current changes. Lately, attention has turned to changes in the ocean environment. Unusual warmth and currents might be disorienting whales or pushing them into unfamiliar shallow areas. In the Tasmanian event, experts noted that shifting ocean currents due to global warming could be a factor confusing the whales' navigation. Increased strandings could be a red flag that the ocean conditions whales rely on are shifting rapidly. There have been reports of deep-sea lancetfish, those sleek, cannibalistic fish with fangs, washing up alive on California beaches. And well, even giant squids have been sighted at the surface or washing ashore in some instances. Each event on its own might be a curiosity or a one-off, but, taken together, these out-of-habitat appearances seem to be happening more frequently than before. Uncommon deep-sea creatures are surfacing and drawing public fascination and concern. Before we dive into science, let's address those myths and legends head-on. It's easy to see why people find supernatural meaning in deep-sea creatures appearing. They're rare, mysterious, and often associated with bad omens in folklore. The oarfish, in particular, carries the weight of myth on its long back. In Japanese lore, it's called the messenger from the sea god's palace and is believed to warn of earthquakes. So, when several oarfish were sighted around 2010 to 2011 in Japan, and then a huge earthquake followed, the story spread worldwide that oarfish predict earthquakes. But scientists have examined this claim and found no solid evidence for oarfish as seismic predictors. Earthquakes and oarfish both are rare events, and sometimes rare things coincide by chance. One analysis noted that many oarfish strandings did not correlate with quakes, and many quakes had no preceding oarfish. As mentioned, experts like Professor Motomura emphasize there's no scientific basis to link the two. Some researchers have speculated that perhaps underwater tremors could disorient deep-sea fish, causing them to surface. But this remains unproven and is not widely accepted. In all likelihood, an oarfish found near the surface is suffering from illness or distress, for instance parasites or starvation, rather than actively fleeing an earthquake. Similarly, other folk explanations, like deep-sea creatures fleeing an impending tsunami or coming up because they sense doom, step into the realm of speculation. It makes for a dramatic story, but science looks for environmental causes. And increasingly, scientists are pointing to climate change and related ocean changes as the more plausible culprit behind these strange appearances. In short, it's not that these creatures are predicting doom, it's that our changing planet might be forcing them out of their comfort zone. While folklore offers ominous warnings, scientists have been observing tangible, measurable changes in the ocean that could explain why deep-sea animals are straying from home. The leading suspect is climate change, specifically, the way global warming is altering the ocean's environment. Remember, the deep sea was long thought to be a stable, unchanging place buffered from what happens at the surface. But we now know that's not true. The deep ocean is intimately connected to surface conditions. And as we humans warm the atmosphere with greenhouse gases, the oceans absorb an overwhelming majority of that heat. In fact, about 90% of global warming's extra heat ends up in the ocean. The ocean is our planet's big heat sponge, and it's soaking up huge amounts of energy, causing ocean temperatures to rise from the surface to the depths. Rising ocean temperatures have a cascade of effects. Warming waters directly affect where marine species can live. Many fish are very sensitive to temperature. If their habitat warms beyond what they can tolerate, they have to move, typically towards cooler water, which might mean deeper or towards the poles. We've already documented numerous species shifting their ranges due to warming waters. For example, fish populations moving northward or deeper to stay in cooler environs. But deep-sea creatures usually can't just move much deeper. They're often already near the ocean floor, and are adapted to very stable cold temperatures. Declining oxygen or ocean deoxygenation is a significant issue. Warm water holds less oxygen, and as surface waters warm, it leads to stronger stratification, layers in the ocean that don't mix as easily, which means less oxygen from the surface gets transported down deep. The result is expanding oxygen minimum zones or hypoxic zones, huge layers of the mid-depth ocean with very low oxygen. Climate scientists have found that over the past 50 years, low oxygen zones in places like the tropical Atlantic have expanded vertically, growing larger and encroaching into waters that used to have more oxygen. For a deep-sea animal, that's like your breathable zone shrinking. Imagine living in a mansion, but slowly the available living space shrinks to just one room where you can breathe. Some deep-sea animals can tolerate low oxygen. For instance, the lollipop cat shark has gills that hoover up oxygen efficiently, but even they have limits. The Humboldt squid, also known as jumbo squid, is a great example. These large squids spend their days in deep, low-oxygen waters and come up to near surface at night to recharge on oxygen. Scientists discovered that as climate change makes the low oxygen layer thicker, the squid get squeezed into a narrower band of water with enough oxygen. If their deep refuge becomes too oxygen poor, they have no choice but to venture higher up in search of O2. Essentially, climate change can suffocate deep-sea creatures out of their habitat. Changing ocean currents and chemistry are also major concerns. The ocean's circulation patterns are being disrupted by uneven warming. Currents that used to run at certain strengths or directions might shift, sometimes bringing deep waters up, known as upwelling, or altering where food and nutrients go. There's also ocean acidification. The seawater is absorbing excess CO2 and becoming slightly more acidic, which can affect deep-sea creatures' shells and metabolism. Warming can even change the kind of food that sinks to the deep. One long-term study found that changes in climate like El Niño events and overall warming altered the amount and type of organic matter sinking to abyssal depths, causing some deep-sea species to boom and others to bust in population. So the deep sea is not immune to climate change, it actually responds, sometimes dramatically. Now combine all these factors and think of it from a deep-sea animal's perspective. Your world is getting warmer, lower in oxygen, and perhaps poorer in food. You're stressed. You might move to find cooler or more oxygen-rich water, even if that means leaving your normal depth range. You might follow prey that are moving upward or poleward, or you might become weakened by lack of oxygen or food and start drifting upward, unable to maintain your position. A lot of the deep-sea fish that end up at the surface are found in a moribund or dying state, which suggests they were already in distress. Climate change can absolutely put deep-sea creatures in distress. For example, experiments show that Humboldt squid struggle and become lethargic when oxygen is lowered and temperature raised to future climate scenarios. Warmer water speeds up their metabolism, making them need more oxygen, which then isn't available. A double whammy that can literally drive them upward, gasping for breath. Scientists are increasingly confident that many of these unusual surfacing events are linked to climate-related changes. A report on the recent spate of deep-sea creature sightings concluded that global warming is changing ocean currents and habitats, potentially driving deep-sea species toward the surface. For instance, the unusual presence of anglerfish in shallow water has been attributed to warming oceans and altered currents, essentially pushing these fish out of their normal zones. If deep water where the anglerfish live becomes uncomfortable, or if currents physically advect them upward, they might end up in shallows they'd never naturally venture into. In the case of whales, warmer currents might displace their prey or confuse their navigation cues, leading them astray. In short, climate change is disrupting the deep-sea environment that these creatures evolved for, and some are responding by moving to new, sometimes very visible places. It's a bit ironic. These animals coming to the surface are not heralding doom in a mystical sense, but they are sending a message about rapid environmental change. As one science writer noted, the increasing frequency of these incidents suggests marine ecosystems are undergoing significant changes. It's almost like the deep ocean is waving a red flag at us through the appearance of its most elusive residents. Some might ask, so what if a weird fish washes up now and then? Is it really a big deal? It's true that on an individual level, one fish's misfortune might not tilt the scales of the ecosystem, but as indicators, these events carry weight. Deep-sea creatures are like canaries in the coal mine for the ocean. If we start seeing more of them in distress, it means conditions in the deep are changing beyond normal. The deep sea is enormous. The abyssal plains alone cover about 60% of Earth's surface, and it plays a crucial role in our planet's systems. Already, research has documented surprising shifts. One long study at a deep Pacific station showed certain fish, like grenadiers, doubled in abundance in 15 years, likely due to climate and food changes. Other creatures, like some sea cucumbers, virtually disappeared after a warm year event, while different species exploded in number. This shows the deep ecosystem can flip when conditions change. Now consider long-term global warming. We're essentially pushing on that system in a sustained way. When deep-sea creatures like oarfish or anglerfish show up unexpectedly, it hints that their normal balance has been disturbed. Furthermore, these encounters are golden opportunities for science. Every rare specimen that washes up is examined by researchers, offering clues about deep-sea life and health. For instance, the oarfish that washed up in California in 2023 is being studied for its genome and biology to understand how it lives in the deep. They can even carry chemical markers of the deep ocean conditions in their tissues, so they tell us a story, if we're willing to listen. And the story we're hearing is that the deep ocean is under strain from our changing climate. It's worth noting that not every deep-sea creature at the surface is due to climate alone. Some can be one-off anomalies or involve other factors. For example, an underwater volcanic eruption or toxin could kill fish that then float up. But the pattern and timing of multiple events globally points strongly to a warming ocean as a common denominator. The mystery of deep-sea creatures surfacing turns out to be a cautionary tale, one that connects legends of sea monsters to the very real issue of climate change. The monsters aren't fleeing a mythical apocalypse. In a way, they're fleeing us. Or rather, the effects of human activity on the planet. It's a stark reminder that even the deepest, most remote parts of Earth are not isolated from what we do. The carbon emissions from a factory thousands of miles inland, the exhaust from your car, the deforestation of a faraway land. All these actions add up to alter the global climate, which penetrates into the oceans and down into the abyss. The deep sea, once thought unchangeable, is feeling the heat, literally, and sending up flares in the form of displaced creatures. The good news is that knowing this galvanizes us to act. Every strange fish on the beach is an opportunity to talk about ocean conservation and climate action. We can support policies and innovations that reduce carbon pollution, thereby slowing the warming of the oceans. Remember, the oceans have absorbed 90% of the warming. If we give them a chance by cutting emissions, we can limit further damage. Protecting marine ecosystems is also key. Healthier oceans, less overfishing, less pollution, give marine life a better chance to cope with stresses. For example, establishing marine protected areas can ensure deep-sea habitats have refuge from additional pressures like deep-sea mining or trawling. As viewers and citizens, we have a role to play. Even simple actions help, using less single-use plastic so it doesn't end up in the ocean, supporting clean energy, spreading awareness about why the ocean matters, and of course, educating others that climate change is not just a polar bear issue, it's an entire ocean issue. The deep sea might seem distant, but it's connected to us. It helps regulate our climate and provides inspiration and wonder. Those bioluminescent creatures are the inspiration for so many sci-fi aliens. If we want future generations to marvel at living oarfish or anglerfish in their natural habitat, and not just as washed-up casualties, we need to take ocean conservation and climate action seriously. So the next time you see a sensational headline about a bizarre sea monster appearing where it shouldn't, you'll know the context. It's a sign of change, and a chance for us to change course. From the deepest trench to the shoreline, it's all one ocean, and it's warming. Let's keep that in mind and rise to the challenge, just as these deep-sea creatures have risen to the surface to get our attention. By making more sustainable choices and supporting conservation, each of us can contribute to turning the tide. If you found this exploration eye-opening, please hit the like button and subscribe for more science and nature stories. Share this video to spread awareness about our oceans. Let's all do our part, from reducing our carbon footprint to supporting marine conservation groups, to ensure that the mysteries of the deep sea remain safely in the depths, where they belong. Together, we can help protect our blue planet.